Brilliance Audio presents As Good as True by Cheryl Reid, performed by Karen Peaks. Any other day, the shrill alarm would ring at 4:30, and I would dress in cool darkness and start the day's baking for the store. By 5, I would be leaning against the oven, its heat ticking up, while I sipped my first cup of coffee and cooked his breakfast. By 6, he would have eaten and left to open the grocery. But I had failed to set the alarm, and I woke startled at 9 a.m. with the bright sun in my eyes and sweat beading on my neck. The heat was already at a high pitch, and the cicadas had begun their deep drone outside my window. At the doorway of Elias's room, morning light filtered through the sheer drapes. Across the bed, on top of the sheets, his body lay stiff. The stench of vomit and shit still lingered. I opened windows and turned on the fan. No breath, no movement, only the whir of hot air pushing across my cheek. The house was quiet, with a dead man in it. The night before, he had scratched around and pried at my door until the small hours, when all he could do was say my name, at first begging, then with rage. But I stayed locked in my bedroom. The highboy pushed against the entrance, and I listened for him to be still. When finally I stood over him in the dark, his body was contorted, his knees drawn inward, his head crooked sideways, and his eyes fixed on the north-facing window. I did not turn on lights in the wee hours, as I cleaned his mess with vinegar and baking soda to kill the odor. I turned his body to change the dirty sheets. The dead weight was heavy and unwieldy, but I straightened his limbs and ran my fingers over his eyelids. His dying had not been easy. In the bright morning light, I searched for any signs he might have left behind, anything I might have missed in the dark. His pants lay crumpled on the floor by his bed. In his pockets were small change and bills, about $200, bound by a silver clip our son had given him. He had kicked off his work shoes, black wingtips, polished to a high shine, the hard ridges of leather gleaming and clean. His thin black socks had been peeled off, and the shapes of his toes were molded in them. I looked in his bureau for anything out of the ordinary, but found only the white T-shirts, the underpants and socks, all of which I had washed, folded, and put away. I picked up the dirtied sheets on the floor. From them fell a piece of paper, a wadded receipt from our store. I smoothed it and saw Orlando Washington's name and address. I studied the paper in my hand and knew Elias had intended him harm. My chest constricted as if someone were binding me in a corset. I'd had similar spells of pain over the years, finding it hard to catch my breath, as if my ribs were too small to contain my heart and lungs. I told myself Elias was no longer a threat, just an empty shell. I wiped my palms against the cotton of my gown. My fingers found the fresh bruises on my arms, where he had held me down and tried to press the life out of me. I wanted his body out of my sight. My eyes landed on the old crucifix, carved of olive wood, hanging between the bedposts. His father had brought it with him on the boat from Beirut. The Christ figure's head hung sideways, and the suffering wooden eyes gazed down on Elias. We had been married 27 years, and I felt relief to have him gone.